Title: This one mistake got him caught after 15 years. For 15 years, Jason Ward lived a life built on deception. To the people of Aspen Ridge, a sleepy Colorado suburb nestled between pine-covered hills and the Rockies' shadow, Jason was a quiet fixture of the community. A handyman by trade and a polite, if distant, neighbor, he kept to himself and rarely drew attention. He showed up when roofs leaked, when snow blocked driveways, or when someone needed help lifting heavy furniture. He didn't talk much about his past, and no one pressed. In a town where people valued their own privacy, his silence wasn't a red flag, it was almost a badge of honor. But Jason Ward was never his real name. In 2010, he had been Daniel Cross, a man whose face had once graced FBI Most Wanted posters. Daniel had masterminded one of the most daring bank heists in recent memory. Wearing a security guard's uniform, he and 2 accomplices entered a downtown Chicago bank just after closing hours, disarmed the night staff, and made off with $2.4 million in unmarked bills. The robbery was clean, clinical, almost surgical. All except one detail. During the escape, a guard confronted them unexpectedly. There was a scuffle. A gun went off. The guard survived, but the injury elevated the charges. Now, it wasn't just robbery, it was attempted murder. For months, the FBI pursued leads. Airports were watched. Borders were checked. Accomplices were caught. But Daniel Cross disappeared like smoke. No digital footprint, no family contact, no trace. Everyone had a theory. Some thought he fled to South America. Others believed he was killed by one of his own crew to cut him out of the share. The case eventually went cold, filed away under a stack of unsolved mysteries. But Cross wasn't dead. He was in Colorado, blending in with the snow and pine needles. Jason Ward had been carefully constructed over months of planning. Daniel used high-level fake documents, altered his appearance, growing out his hair, gaining weight, even breaking his nose deliberately to change the structure of his face. He learned basic carpentry, plumbing, and electrical work, eventually earning a quiet reputation as a reliable jack-of-all-trades. He never drew attention, never got close to anyone. No social media. No online presence. He paid rent in cash, drove a nondescript truck, and avoided bars, nightclubs, and large gatherings. He read books. Walked alone. Changed his routines every few months. He lived like a ghost. And for 15 years, it worked. Until the day it didn't. It was an unseasonably hot July afternoon in 2025. Jason had been working on a rotted backyard fence for a retired couple just outside town. The sun beat down in waves, and by the end of the day, he was drenched in sweat and sunburned across the back of his neck. He made a quick stop at Martin's Hardware, a locally owned shop where he was well known. He needed a new drill bit and some rust-proof screws, just a small purchase. Normally, he paid in cash. Always. But that day, maybe it was the heat, or maybe he was distracted, he reached for the card. A debit card he had created years ago under his false identity. One he hadn't used in a decade. He tapped it on the new reader, smiled at the young clerk, and left with his items. Just another errand, another forgettable transaction. But the reader had recently been upgraded, part of a state initiative to improve fraud detection for small businesses. It flagged the card immediately. The social security number was outdated. It triggered a low-level anomaly alert, a small digital whisper sent to a government system designed to detect financial inconsistencies in cases tied to old fraud investigations. A week later, that whisper reached the desk of an analyst at the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. Bored, overworked, and combing through data, she noticed the odd hit. Something about it tugged at her curiosity. She ran a background check on the name Jason Ward, finding a DMV photo uploaded years ago. The photo made her pause. The man looked familiar, older, fuller in the face, hair thinning, but his eyes, his expression, something clicked. A reverse facial recognition scan was run. Less than 30 minutes later, she had a match. Daniel Cross. The system lit up. Within hours, the FBI reopened the case and contacted the U.S. Marshals. They initiated surveillance, watching Jason's quiet home from across the street using vans disguised as utility vehicles. Drones flew overhead. Microphones were planted near his mailbox. Still, Jason gave them nothing. No calls. No contacts. No signs of a secret life. But the marshals waited. They wanted certainty. After 10 days, a warrant was signed. At 6:14 a.m. on a quiet Friday morning, the team moved in. They knocked politely, then loudly, then kicked the door in. Jason didn't run. He stood barefoot in the hallway, wearing a white t-shirt and worn jeans. He didn't ask who they were. He didn't resist. He looked at them, calmly, like he'd been waiting for this moment his whole life. Inside the basement, agents found a sealed storage space hidden behind a false wall. Inside were bundles of cash wrapped in plastic, a forged passport, a collection of IDs, and a photo of the original heist crew, faded and creased. The last loose thread of a life he thought he had buried. As Jason Ward, Daniel Cross, was led outside in cuffs, reporters swarmed the street. Word had already leaked. One shouted, "Why'd you come back? Why now?" He didn't answer. But later, in custody, when asked what had gone wrong, he simply said, "I should have used cash. I always did before. One tap, that's all it took." In the end, it wasn't a shootout, a betrayal, or an elaborate sting that brought him down. It was a single slip. A moment of routine. A $47.82 transaction. 15 years of running undone by one mistake.